Okay.
Well, welcome to this panel. I think it's a moment in which we connect two big things together. Now, if we talk about deep tech, if we talk about deep tech innovation, I think we cannot dissociate actually entrepreneurship from academia and entrepreneurship from research. And how do we go actually from the labs to actually the impact into society, the commercialization of technology, as Liz was mentioning before? How can we foster better exchanges and better promotion of the technology that is built in our countries, in Europe, in Asia, and actually trying to match some fast runners, like as Liz was mentioning in the US and other countries. But actually, there's a lot of innovation in many places, and it's wonderful to have together. I think we cannot think about a tech transfer without integrating the entrepreneurs, without integrating the regulators, without integrating the academia, as I was mentioning before, and without integrating the industry. So actually, I've got a great panel of representatives of this, and I wanted to start to ask you guys to share with the audience, what is your entry point to tech transfer? Guido, what do you bring you to tech transfer? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks, Geoffroy, for the warm intro. So we at Koralo, we are a deep tech company working in a very traditional industry, food. So we developed our technology in Germany, but soon saw that a huge market opportunity was actually not in Europe, but here in Korea. So we decided 2 years ago that we would move to Korea, move our technology as well, and that's how we earned first-place experience, first-hand experience, how it can look like when you move technology.
That's wonderful. Rio, we're back. You
Yes.
discussed with Juanjo before about, the wonderful possibilities of Japan for startup entrepreneurship, but how did you get? What's your point of entry into tech transfer? So tell us a little bit about your angle. I think you represent the regulators in this place, no?
Oh, yeah.
The public sector, and how are you boosting that from that way?
So, so as a government, the officials, we are supporting the deep tech startups comprehensively, as I told you in the previous panel. But the thing is, so that we set the ecosystem for the deep tech startups to just develop their technologies. So that we focus on this kind of the stage, but we less focus on the implementing the technologies in the reality. So then we are now, we are now raising our bars, and also we are now accelerating to make their technologies to commercialize overall in the Japanese market. So the tech transfer is kind of the very, very important for the Japanese community as a whole, because we have the many, many social issues. So the deep tech and technology itself are very critical for changing the society, right? So then we need some innovation through the technology. So then it is critical for sure in the Japanese market. But this is not an easy way for entrepreneurs. And we heard some interviews with the deep tech startups. So they have the very they face the difficulties such as in terms of the investment. So the funding is very difficult because it has a long term for their business implementation. Then they need some years to develop their technologies. But recently, the situation is changed. But for the last couple of years, so like the Japanese deep tech startups are they face the difficulties in funding because they don't have the track record or the tractions. But we support them. We like to support them to realize innovation at the end.
Okay, thanks. Well, actually, and to get back to another profile that entry points of a tech transfer, actually, Seungiae, I recall a lot visiting Silicon Valley and seeing, how much like academics that went from the classroom to be entrepreneurs, to create their ventures, grow them, be successful, and actually come back to university. And remember, for example, the case of Ion Stoica of Databricks, that actually invested over 25 million donation into UC Berkeley to create its proper center in cloud computing and pushing that forward. So you kind of represent that facet made in Korea.
Yeah.
You are actually yourself an entrepreneur, you are business right now, and you are an academic. So tell us a little bit more about that entry point that you have to tech transfer.
Yeah, so based on my experience, I would like to always emphasize the value to the academia person, because academia person usually focus on innovation. So they would like to make how big their innovation, but from the value perspective, even small innovation can be deliver big value to the patient or to the customers. So when I talk to the professors or academia persons, they always talk about how they technologies are innovative, or they can make a huge differentiation with the previous technology. But even with the big technology, they cannot deliver a small value. From the tech transfer perspective, it's not very delicious item or the attractive one. So I always talk about the value, thinking about value of their technology, and talk about payer, because in academia usually they don't think about the payer who will pay for that technology or service. But in they deliver such and sustain their technology or keep delivering that value, they have to be considered the payer of the technology.
Well, actually, to enter a bit deeper in the tech transfer, I wanted to touch first on the technological aspects of it, no? And how actually you face when you export technology. Guido, can you tell us a little bit, like, your company, Koralo, like actually for people in the audience that don't know, create synthetic fish, I would call it like that, based on microalgae or mushrooms. When you had to export to Korea and start your business here, what did you face as technological challenge for tech transfer? Like, how did it impact?
So I think, great question. So I think the first thing was that we had fully developed our technology also to industrial trials in Europe. Coming to a new country, you face, of course, the question of, can we trust that this is really working? So I think what my key learning was, it's not just about technology and the hardware, because technical people understand each other, but it's also gaining the trust of people who you need to support you to be able to really deliver that innovation and delivering that technology. So and then the second thing, of course, is we are a poor startup, so we had to do with what was there. So it's also, how do you show the adaptability as a startup, that you say, whatever is there, I will try to make it work. And really figuring out with your partners you have locally gained, how to make it work. And I think that was an interesting learning and also insightful, because it helped both sides. It also helped us, because we built a technology which is now much more robust to be rolled out globally, because we did the first step in a very different environment. And maybe if you allow, I think that's something which I noticed. Real innovation only happens if you move outside your bubble. So it's not done if you think you've done something innovative, it's probably not good enough. You really have to move outside your bubble.
And how does culture impact that? Because I know that you mentioned to me previously that a growing and actually doing business in two sides of the world, like Europe. You were incubated in Unternehmertum in Germany, you started a company over there and everything, and then you moved here also to expand it. But the culture is also a really important factor in the development of deep tech companies and in tech transfer. So can you give us a little angle on that too, I think?
Sure. I think, and I'm sure Seungiae and Rio will adhere to that as well. You have different mentalities when it comes to risk. and risk. In Europe, it's somehow sort of. I think the Americans, that's why are probably also so great at commercialization, because they accept failure as part of doing business. I think in Europe it's half-half, and when I arrived in Korea, I felt failure is really something you don't want to have. You don't want to be too much exposed to it. So you have to find ways on how you can convince that the risk you're taking and the failure which comes to it is not too big to really embarrass either yourself or your partner. And I think that was the first learning. The second, and I think that's probably more when you come to the commercialization, it's about realizing that what you think is your positioning in one market and which really tells why this should be a great product, maybe not a great product in another market. We are a consumer-facing product, so what we learned is in Europe it was very important, sustainability as an aspect, why you would choose our product. What we learned in Korea, this was less relevant. So we had to seek a different way of positioning, and we came up after a lot of being in the market, talking to consumers, getting their feedback, we came up that actually it was more a health and wellness food, which was much more attractive for Koreans as a proposition. So as a company, again, we not only learned from the tech, but the tech was an enabler to learn also how we can better commercialize our product.
Wonderful. Well, actually, because we're talking about culture and about innovation, I just wanted to ask Seungiae as a Korean, and we know all that Korea has been championing innovation in Asia, really, and we also sometimes think that, how from a European perspective, you know, it's sometimes difficult to hack the historical constraints over, actually, you were mentioning the culture of failure, Guido was mentioning the adaptation to change, and how we engage into innovation. So is your experience, because I know you've been collaborating also with Europe quite a lot and everything, would you see that? Or can we actually, in Europe, adopt more maybe that innovation perspective that Korea has? Or actually, what is the exchange that can be done there in order to boost innovation?
Yes, so from my perspective, there is two things. From the geographic perspective, Korea can be a very good, very attractive for the European company who would like to expand their business in Asia Pacific area, because Korea is very condensed and tech savvy. So Korea can be a good test bed for the European company who consider expand their business in Europe, in Asia Pacific, because China is too big, and Japan, as the Kido mentioned, that is very sometimes is big, as more bigger than anything else, and a little bit different with, because like other Asia country, Japan is more far advanced, more westernized from our perspective. Yeah, and also from the Singapore, Taiwan, or other countries is a very small thing. So sometimes Korea good candidate for the test bed for the Asia market. And also from Korea startup, I would recommend Switzerland or small European country as their landing spot for the European continent. Because when we, from the Korea perspective, when we think about Europe, Europe is not a single country, even it has a European committee, EC, but Europe is a very different. And for example, Spain is a huge country, France is huge, and Germany is huge, but compared to other such a big country, there is a small country like Switzerland or Lithuania or some other things. So maybe Korea perspective, maybe we consider such a small country as a landing spot, and then they can expand their presence in European countries. So from geographic, I would like to recommend such a landing and expansion strategy for each region, the startup, to expand their business in Europe side or Asia Pacific side.
Yeah, well, actually, coming from a European perspective, and actually we discussed before the entry point into actually tech transfer, maybe I'll share a little bit also our entry point. So at the IE School of Science and Technology, we actually reinventing a polytechnic from scratch, no, and starting a polytechnic, an entrepreneurial way. We brought it in from UC Berkeley. We're trying to push really tech innovation at the beginning and at the core. But actually, as you were mentioning about countries in Europe and everything, it is something that struggles in Europe at the moment in order to boost scale-ups. No? We know that Europe creates probably as much startups as the US do, but the problem that we face many times is actually at the moment that they get to scale and to really be taking their technology and go to the bigger markets, they actually face a big issues like regulations in 20 more countries, facing some burdens in terms of investments, being able to navigate ecosystems. And so we've been actually really focusing into a new network in Europe that is called Rise Europe, that unites 13 countries and 20 institutions around actually the startup building ecosystems, trying to unify actually this and to lobby to have more integration around that with Unternehmertum, with others, and it's something really essential, no? And I wanted to ask Rio, because you really have a clear strategy about a 5-year plan for startups in Japan. You are a really, I know that you mentioned that in the previous conversation, betting into the startups as, you know, the transformer of the economy for Japan in the future. How do you face that, and how do you look into attracting international deep tech startup to come to Japan, and how do you boost innovation inside the country?
Thank you. Yeah. So, as a government and also as an ecosystem stakeholder, we set up the kind of the stage for the international startups, deep tech startups to come into Japan to foster their technologies or businesses in local market. So then, I say like, so there are lots of opportunities for foreign founders to make their business started in Japan, but we actually, so that in the public sectors, so that annually, like roughly $100 billion are investing in the R&D, research and development in Japan. But as a result, we gather, you know, the kinds of the seeds of the technologies at the end. But 60% of them were dumped into the, you know, dumped, and also they are not moving to the technologies for implementation. So then, this kind of the culture difference has to be changed. But actually, this is a kind of the opportunities for the international startups as well, because the large corporations and the local deep tech startups are trying to develop their businesses and technologies in Japan. And once the international startups come into Japan and have a partnership with them, they can, you know, enhance developing their technologies and businesses in a better way. So then there might be the good the partnership and collaborations for the international startups in Japan, I think.
So actually, yesterday we had a panel here about the future of work in AI, and discussing, where are we going and everything. And actually, in our previous conversation to the panel, I discovered a new job for the future, which actually was market navigator, on ecosystems navigators. You mentioned, I think Guido mentioned that, and Seungiae also enjoyed and wrote it, because it's so fundamental, I think, in countries and everything, and the specificity that Rio just mentioned too, also about Japan, to really have people understanding. No, it's really important when you enter a new, to be able to navigate the market. Guido, what's your experience in that, and how do we need to foster more like those type of profiles for the future of startups scaling up in other countries than theirs?
I think it's essential because tech founders generally are not, I would say, the most culturally versatile people as such. And what you need is you need someone who really helps you to understand and connect to potential partners. We had also one experience where our technology was for some people so far out that they couldn't really understand what the benefit was. And we didn't have a very simple way to explain. And we failed to convince in the first moment. So I think someone who is able to help you to get to that point of mutual understanding, who helps you to say, okay, now we get why your technology may be interesting for us, and we can connect you to partners who could help you in this commercialization phase. Because I think that's what we notice also in Korea. There is an interest in technology. Actually, there's a lot of fostering, and also, Rio, what you were saying for Japan. But I think the second phase, to once you have landed startups, to bring them to that phase of commercialization, to help them navigate that phase is crucial if you really want to be tech transfer successful.
Actually, Seungiae, I think that in your role in the industry at the moment, you advise company on biotech, no? And in the biopharmas and everything. So what do you face when you have actually international companies approaching to actually do business in Korea or whatever? What would you say that are sometimes their most biggest failure, or do they need that navigator?
So from the biotech perspective, Korea biotech is more focused on the material or tech transfer. So they usually don't think about go-to-market strategies. So they more focus on during the development phase 1 or early phase 2, they would like to license sell their asset to the big pharma. So in that case, they usually focus on B2B business, not to B2C business. But from my perspective, even a big pharma, multinational company, they more focus on a B2B2C business. So they buy a small asset from small biotech, and they would like to further development by themselves, and they consider go-to-market strategy with the U.S. market, European market, or Asia Pacific market. So from small biotech perspective, they're more focused on a B2B business, but the buyer side, they would like to hear about the B2C story because they would like to sell that story internally or externally to justify their license in the assets. So from my perspective, usually I talk to many startup, especially biotech or healthcare startup who would like to focus on licensing out or sell their asset or company to the big company. I already talked about you should consider B2C business or B2C story to persuade everybody.
Yeah, no. To jump on another aspect of tech transfer, I think that one key thing and you were talking, Rio, about maturity process, no? And deep tech takes time. And it's long-term investments before to get results and everything. Last night, actually, I'm having a conversation with the director of the European Investment Bank Institute. And she was telling me about Kotek in Korea and the way they were collaborating. Kotek is the Korean Technology Investment Corporation. And the way that they were working together between Europe and between Korea in actually finding new ways to do collaboration in terms of funding between public and private, because it's really long term. Like Rio, you were mentioning before about, and I'll come back to actually the Kotek aspect with Seungiae after, but Rio, you were mentioning before about the VCs supporting deep tech companies. You were talking about ways to reach VC through LinkedIn and everything. But what about public investments? How is public investment focused in Japan in order to actually foster really good deep tech innovation? Because without public funding, probably it's really difficult to emerge with those technologies that take so much time to get to market, no?
Yes. So we have the investment vehicle in Japan, like a public-private investment vehicle. So then we have the different types of the vehicles. But for example, we have the Japan Investment Corporations, belongs to the METI, the Ministry of Economy. So they invest directly in the startups, but as well as investing through the BCs, or global BCs or local BCs. So that it's like a fund of funds system. But so recently we see the importance of the deep tech startup support. So like in general, as we may know that we have 10 years the time horizon to support the startups in general, but we have to we have to extend the duration for supporting the startups, especially in the deep tech field, like biotechnologies or the hydrogens or newly new renewable energies or something, and everything actually. So they takes time. They need to proof of concept, and they have to show the interactions and evidence to implement their technologies in the business scene. So we are supporting and as an investment vehicle by adding the public investment, the features, the private sectors can maintain their investment for longer time. So then that is very, very important for the deep tech startup to be supported by the public and private investment vehicles. That's for sure.
And actually, Guido, I wanted to ask because don't ask the secret of the boutique, but I suppose that to launch Koralo and to launch a venture like yours, you were in necessity for both, no? Public and private support, or did it work as a frame? Because I think like those long-term developments and everything need actually a sustained support, which not always is easy when people want to high returns and really get their money back with actually, you know, the 10-digit or whatever, the 10 times exponential that maybe other technologies bring. So what was your experience with that, and actually in both, in Europe and in Asia, in that term?
So we had first the privilege that we were getting prize money at the beginning, so that helped us really to kick off. And I think after that, we have a blend of both public financing, which was from the beginning coming from Europe, but later on also from Korea once we started operating here because of the traction we had shown. And I think probably he might be here. We have one Korean investor, which we on purpose wanted to have because we were convinced that if we want to be successful in this market, we also need a local VC to support us here. So that was one critical element. So we needed all of them to get us to where we are, so that we could really, from an idea generation till launch, could do that in 2 years.
Wonderful. Seungiae, well, just to go to that point and talking about Kotech and the way that Korea is doing, I think that also we see actually here we're hosted by the John G. government who's supporting events like So Summit and bringing the startup ecosystems together, no, to thrive and to exchange. But what are the mechanisms in place to support and in terms of investment and everything, startups to grow and to boost into the deep tech world?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the public funding, like a non-diluting funding, from Korea perspective, most of the public funding from the tax of the people, Korea people. So emotionally, Korea government and Korea people doesn't open such a public funding for the foreigners. But recently, Korea opened the R&D research funding for the foreigners, not only from Korea, and also Korea R&D team or academia can apply to the Horizon program of the European systems. And so from the academia first level, there is some now starting us kind of the mixture of their application for the each continent or each country's R&D program. So my perspective from that beginning, in near future, there will be an opening, like some more public funding in a small or medium-sized company, like a TIPS program in Korea. I heard that recently, last year, first foreigners can win the TIPS program in South Korea. So maybe someday from one of the Korea startup win the SME program in a European grant or something, and that can be a starting of the mixture of the public funding inside. And from the public VC perspective, there is Korea has a very unique contract for the VC funding. So it is from the especially from the U.S. perspective, it is not acceptable sometimes. But now the many VCs in Korea realize that their terms in a contract is very unique, so they would like to harmonize with the U.S. or some global template or some praise. So maybe within some years, maybe more harmonize some contract or template of the funding in a VC perspective can be facilitated. Moving the foreign money came to Korea, and also Korea VC can more easily focus on invest in external ex-Korea company or startup. So there is some quarter in funded by Korea government for some public funding, but they would like to now allow 20 or 30% of their total fund invest in ex-Korea company. So I think that their portion is now getting bigger and bigger, but it takes us some time from Korea.
Okay, well, great.
Probably, yeah.
Well, I cannot resist, as being in an education institution, to actually challenge you on something and just ask you a little bit like, what do we need to do, education institutions, to foster better tech transfer, to actually make, our students, our researchers, our academics, more entrepreneurs, and actually to be jumping from the lab to the business. So I just wanted to ask, for your perspective, to the three of you, what education needs to do to actually evolve into being more pushy in that aspect?
Leo, you first.
Okay, take this. So actually, we provide the educational program for the scientists and engineers in the academia. So that's we see the good track and good results out of it. So then, but the thing is, they are traditionally and generally focus on the technology development. So then sometimes they are not interested in the business, like making their technologies to expand. In another way. So then we can show them, we can just, I can say, influence them in a way of visualizing the potential in the global markets. So basically, academias and also the engineers in Japan are focused on the local markets, but they are always talking about the local issues inside of Japan. But of course, we can duplicate the technology and businesses in the external market, but they are not informed by their external, the other members. So then we can make them understood comprehensively to just focus on the other markets. So then, yeah.
That's great.
That is
From
the
the
starting
entrepreneurial point of view, Guido, what would you add to that? What do we need to do to make more innovative?
I think innovation or creating startups is about the spirit. You want to have to follow a dream. I think because otherwise you wouldn't go through all the troubles. Like you said, I think tech people are mostly interested to see that technology flourish. So maybe you can mend them a bit, but maybe that's not going to do the full job. So I think what institutions in education can do is matchmaking. So how can you really find people who say, well, I want to make an impact, but I don't have a great idea. I am a business person. I love to do that, but I don't know, what is the tool I can use. Bring them together with the technologists who have these tools, and get them bonded. Because if they are bonded, maybe they will do something great together.
That's wonderful. Seungiae, you actually have a foot in academia and a foot in business.
Yes.
So actually, how do we have to change education? How do we have to make it evolve? What is your point of view in that?
So I would like to leverage a very unique culture of Korea. We have a very strong peer pressure in Korea. So like some entertainment industry sector in Korea or artists, because the BTS, others, some idol or big entertainment, usually somebody do that, and others think about, okay, they do that, I can do that. So we have a very good, very competing and very high peer pressure in South Korea. So if we can make appropriate role model, find a role model in, especially in biotech or healthcare industry, so we can find some appropriate role model, find the role model in Korea, and maybe everybody can benchmark them because we are very good benchmark and follow. We have a very good fellowship and big pressure. So with some symbols or some iconic person, maybe we can change more academia person to jump into the business. So because currently there is no role model or big success case in academia from academia to industry, but soon we develop once and they make some like a snowball impact. They can getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm keep investing my time, or all the Korea people invest their time, make some first success story, and then we have a big belief that after first success, second and third and fourth it will be much easier, and they're getting bigger and bigger.
Wonderful. And actually, there's one thing that also we didn't touch too much, but which is actually exponential technologies. No, and we here talking about deep tech and AI. AI actually has been, speeding up everything. No, and one we're seeing more and more that connection, that matching that you were mentioning, Guido, between management and science, and the way that the business can be empowering the creation more like deep that has been in the classroom. We're starting actually a new program in January for our students at IE, which is called MXT, Management and Technology Exponential, bridging dual degrees that are at the School of Science and at the School of Business, and trying to put in them that growth mindset, that appetite to be entrepreneurs, to create and to be innovators, because actually it's something that they need to be impulsive, no? But we need to find a way to that. Well, I see that we just have 1 minute left, and so on a quick bite and jump, I wanted to ask you, here we've got an audience, entrepreneurs, we've got people interested. Why should they invest their time in deep tech, in tech transfer, in making the future? And what would you like to see in the future of deep tech for each one of you? So if you had one advice to give.
Deep tech, we have global challenges, and deep tech is a way of tackling those challenges. That's why you should invest your time. How can you do it? I think if you are active in one ecosystem, move to another ecosystem, get perspectives, get different perspectives, because then I think you can become with real breakthrough ideas.
Wonderful. Rio?
Yes, so deep tech is a kind of the driver of changing the innovation, change the world, as I said. And then, but in Japan especially, the deep tech startups are not communicating well to the external market. So then please come and see the deep tech startups in Japan. They have the very good seed of technologies, and they have the potential to change the world from scratch. And then, so then communication and collaboration in the future is very, very important. So then I really hope so.
So for the disruptive innovation, we need a deep tech company, and the future of Korea, especially Korea, is sometimes very worrisome for the aging and other things. So to overcome and make more progress, we need a deep tech technology and startup.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be conversing with you three. A lot of good things happening, I'm sure, for the future. Thank you, So Summit, for hosting us. And as the clock is saying, time over.